Excellent. Welcome, 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 everyone, to Ask the Experts. It's been several months since we've been doing this, and I hope you're having a fantastic Sunday afternoon. So I'm in transit, but when one of these things that in life, when you get an opportunity to get an amazing presenter who's going to teach something, we make it happen. And that's the value add in raising individuals with special needs is that you got to be creative, you got to be adaptable, you got to be flexible, you got to use every tool wherever it is. So I unfortunately can't show my background. I can show my face for a minute. But more than that, you have some really important people who are going to be sharing with us today. So I have invited a colleague of mine who I absolutely love. She is, and Tosin, I'm pinning you now, so your beautiful face could be seen for the whole world. No, not making you nervous, right? I know you don't know what to do with me, but this is what we call love. But I know also as our co-host today is my dearest daughter Sana, who is also a very vital member of the My Go family. So she'll be co-hosting along with me. So questions that we may be getting on Facebook or YouTube or wherever people may be, please feel free to ask questions in the chat. Tosin, I don't know if you want to be interrupted during your presentation or you want to get to the end when we ask the questions. So it's up to you when we're presenting, but my guest speaker is not new to us and my Go families and anybody watching. She is a fantastic provider, and I will let her do a better job of introducing herself. But every time I meet this amazing Tosin, she's learned something new. She's has added something else to her belt. And so it just warms my heart that I can call her at any point and she will say yes. And so I am just so grateful, Tosin, for you being here today and to share. So she's going to be discussing something that is really important, and she's going to be talking about sensory processing and the effect of chronic stress in children. I want to give us a disclaimer here. When I saw the title, I'm like, wow, chronic stress. We're going to be talking about chronic stress in children, but some of us as adults, we're like, God, help us to be able to deal with the stress that we're exposed to while we're taking care of our loved one. So some of the elements that we may be listening to while she's talking about it in children, I think is applicable in adults, especially in caregivers who are in chronic stress. So let's look at it as an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to also see how we can do better in terms of caring for ourselves and our children, because that's the whole value add in having an expert talk about something that they're seeing on a day-to-day. So I want to introduce you to Tosin, who's also a member of our advisory board for our Haven International program. She's done a lot of work for our team in Ghana. And so I want to say thank you, Tosin, for your work and the value that you bring to the community as a provider and also as an individual who's an entrepreneur. So many ways you're always progressive. And so we want to just welcome you and thank you again. So just give an intro to the team. I saw extra letters after your name. So I was telling somebody that I'm going to ask you to describe it a little bit more. So on that note, I want to welcome Tosin Adegboyega, who's an occupational therapist, as I know her, but now she has additional titles. So welcome, Tosin.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. G. I don't really know where to begin, but I want to say a lot of what I have become in the past couple of years, I do owe it to you in some shape or form, because you just kind of push us to be better. I think anyone that knows Dr. G, you will know that when you journey with her, you just only can be better. There's no room to go down, right? So I just really want to thank you for that. Thank you for giving me this platform to share the little that I know. I am an occupational therapist. I've been an occupational therapist for 19 years, just 1 year short of 2 decades, I'd say. And I really can't believe this because I just graduated like yesterday. But over the couple of years, oh, by the way, I have worked with pediatric population for 16 years. So out of the 19, just 16 years. So a big part of my experience has been with the pediatric population, particularly school age. I do have some experience with early intervention too, but I think a wealth of my knowledge is with our school age kids. I, just like Dr. G said, I added a few letters to my title, and that is just to show, I will tell you a little bit about it quickly, but it's to show where my passion is. So as an occupational therapist, from day one, my passion has been in the area of nutrition and holistic health. So even before I got all these credentials, I'm that kind of therapist. When I see a kid or I come in contact with a family, I would always just check in and say, you know, how's the kid doing with their sleep routine? How are they doing with their meals? It's more outside of the typical check-off list of, you know, handwriting and sensory. We want to know other information, and it's because we are treating the whole child, right? I'm not just seeing kids at the tabletop or putting them on a swing. I want to know, before the child came to school, what has been their life, you know, what have they been through? So that's what you see, that the FDNP, pretty much it's functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. I went to pursue this, it's a certification, by the way, because I wanted to have the autonomy to talk about nutrition, how it affects health, and other things that I'm passionate about. That in the past, I only spoke about it and just kind of stayed away because it's not my, it's not my wheelhouse. I did gather some information that was helpful, but I'm not the expert in that area. So that's why I went ahead, and it was a year program. Wasn't easy, but it was worth it. And then the EOC, it's pretty much an essential oil coach. Sense of the sense of smell is a big part of the nervous system. There's a lot you could do with it. So that's why I thought that it would be very helpful to also get that certification. So that's what that is. And it only complements the occupational therapy, just that, you know, it's not doing other things. It brings value to the profession I already practice. So before I proceed, I'm going to say, if I'm going too fast, I'm going to try not to go too fast. But sometimes when I get excited, I just like move fast. So I'm going to try to pace myself. If I'm going too fast, please let me know, Tanner, so I could slow down.
You got it.
So I just want to welcome everybody here. Thank you for taking the time to join. I'm hoping that more people will join, because this conversation is very, very important. I, as a practitioner for 19 years, it's changed my practice. Meaning, yes, I was already on that path, but now it just really makes it what I had a passion for. It made it even more realistic, and I'm just excited to share the little I know. So when Dr. G reached out to me and said, hey, you want to share, you know, with the team, and, you know, of course, my goal, I actually gave her sensory processing and trauma, and trauma in children, something that has to do with trauma. But I realized quickly that I may be narrowing down my audience, and I may also be sending an information that some people may not really relate with. So that's why I decided to make the topic more of a chronic stress and not trauma, because it's just a small box out of stress, right? So that's why I chose that topic. What else? And 1 minute. So for everyone on this platform, I hope that by the time we're done today, I really don't want to make this like a practitioner is here to share. I'm here to tell you what to do. I'm hoping that this is going to be more of a conversation. So feel free. I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to pause in between slides. So I may go 2-3 slides and then pause and say, do you have any questions? I hope we can do that. If I do see that I'm running out of time, I'll probably just go through it. I'll let you know. But for now, the plan will be that I will go through a few slides and I'll pause and say, do you have any question? So, but I do hope that when people leave here today, that they will get a better understanding of how the brain works. I'm not teaching anatomy. No, I'm not doing that. I do hope that people will also understand how the body processes stress. And we know that we're here for the children, right? But a little bit of that will also apply to us, or maybe a lot of it. And then the final one will be that people will have an understanding. Hold on. Oops, sorry. I wanted to move this stuff here so that I could see. sorry, please, that you demonstrate an understanding of how to identify stressors that can impact the sensory system. So I'm hoping that at the very end, those conversations we're gonna have will afford me to kind of get that gist from you that you get it now. So that's what my objectives are. But again, the question now remains, why should you even listen to me? Because everybody's always presenting anything anyway. You probably listen to a dozen of this kind of things. Well, I say you should listen to me and you should get excited about the few things I'm about to share, because over the couple of years, the information that I gathered got me excited. Every day when I went to that class, I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to share this. So, but I actually listed a few things here why you should be excited. You should be excited, one, because 38% of children that may fall in moderate delays or have some kind of learning disability are often missed by the pediatrician, meaning that their parents may not actually become aware of this until the kid gets like third grade. So we know that there are certain kids that have special needs. We know that from early intervention, that's a big bulk of kids. At least I'm thinking from this audience, I don't know who's listening, but you might say, well, my kid already has special needs, but this information is also for 1/3 of the population of children that go to pediatrician and they don't catch it. They don't catch it until they start doing state tests and they're like, oh, the height doesn't process well. Oh, well, we are seeing some lagging in certain areas. So that's why you should listen. I also want you to know, so I do have all these bullet point things. I'm probably just gonna go through it like grossly, not pick every one to talk about. If there is one that you feel like, oh, you didn't say something about that, please note it down and then I'll probably be able to come back to it. Also that we know that early intervention, this is knowledge that is available to most of us. The earlier we get to the kids, the better. But more so in the Western world, it's actually cost effective, because then a big bulk of your taxes and my taxes will not go to caring for those children later on, because when we catch the children much earlier, guess what? As a caregiver, you don't have to be a caregiver for the rest of your life. Or we take off the hedge of the burden, because now the kids would have learned to some extent to be more independent, something they probably would need 2 or 3 people to support them. Maybe we need one person, or maybe the person is actually independent and they're living on their own because a lot of work was done very early on. So that's why you should listen on. Well, stress. 50% of illnesses are tailored to stress. And like you see there already, 80%, 7 to 80% are related, stress related. But as this one, I put BAM over there because come on, the brain can be rewired. And I choose to start this conversation with the brain because the information that is being processed by the body is going to the brain. And then the brain stem sends it to the body. So that is why I figured that let's talk about the brain, get an understanding of how the brain works. So that's really much why I'm starting this conversation with the brain. So now the body, which is experiencing stress, right? The body can heal itself if we give it a chance. That is the statement of fact. The way the human body is, it's not a simple machine, just that you know that it's a complex machine. So in a simple machine, just think about a flashlight. When the flashlight doesn't work, what are you gonna get? Get a battery, change the battery, see maybe it's gonna come on. If it doesn't work, get the light bulb, change it, see maybe it's gonna come on. If it doesn't, you just buy another one, right? But the human body is not like that. The human body, when something goes wrong, is just not one thing. It can cascade into so many areas. And so when we see a child that's not paying attention, we cannot make an assumption that, oh, the kid just needs a weighted vest on them, and then they will pay attention. That's why I call try and error, right? Just trying this, trying that. We want to be able to kind of narrow, we want to have a system to be doing to narrow down. Why is this child this way? So this is why you should get excited about this conversation today, because it's going to give you some pointers as to, oh, so I should be looking at that. So the other part is that the brain body tries to get back to balance when there is stress, right? But if there's constant stress, then the body begins to move in a different direction. So your body, your child's body, can get back to balance, normal, a state of ease. That is the absence of dis-ease, right? That's where your body's at ease. Your child's body can get to that. The brain can rewire itself. So excited about that. And the body remembers. So a lot of things that our children goes through or will go through, the brain keeps a memory of that, and it keeps a score of it. I put the word applied kinesiology there. I'm just going to start a quick example right now. So if you have someone next to you there right now, or maybe after this presentation, you can do this quick test on them. Touch the forehead with the temple, just 2 fingers, touch the forehead, touch the chest, touch the forehead, touch the chest, sorry. Tell the person to keep their hands straight and get your 2 fingers and tell them, can I touch you? All right, when you touch them to push down on the muscle, you could say something like, I love you, and see how the body reacts to that. What research has shown is that when you speak a positive word to someone, like if you, while you're doing that test, say, I love you, the body will uphold its strength, but you say, I hate you, you would see the hand give way. At least that's what we're supposed to see with this, but it's from applied kinesiology. So, and there are other things in the area of this practice. But the whole point of that demonstration is to show you, and you can try it out, that power of words and thoughts, positive words that we speak to children, whether in therapy, outside of therapy, the body keeps a record of it. And so we should be mindful of that therapeutically and as a caregiver. So, and I do hope that by the end of this presentation, we will to some extent, as a parent and as a caregiver, that we are not going to be just try and error with our kids or the students that we provide services, that we are actually going to have some kind of system to the doing. So that's why you should get excited. That's all that conversation about that. All right, now here's the brain. I am not here to teach you the anatomy, but the brain has 3 parts. You got the front, the middle, and the back. All you need to know about the brain is that the middle and the back of your brain, they're where certain basic life functions lies. You know, the center for love, the center for affection, to remain safe. Like the lower part of the brain houses things like, you know, you being excited or being traumatized, fear, and like those kind of emotional stuff. They are at the base of the brain. But what you want to remember from this presentation is, if there is some kind of challenge from stress, and we're going to learn that in a little bit, what the stressors can be, the upper brain, which is responsible for complex thinking, critical thinking, will not kick in. Children will struggle for higher level functioning if the middle of the brain and the lower brain is already in crisis, by whatever it is. So that's what you need to know about this picture. All right. The other thing you need to know about the brain, just key properties of the brain, because if we know how something behaves, we can position ourselves relative to it, either to help the process or, you know, avoid certain things. So the brain has something called a hierarchical model, meaning that the lower brain stem, certain things has to be met. I will just deviate a little bit. Like children or human being in general, you know, you want to make sure that a child, the need for shelter, the need for food, the need for comfort and love, those are the basic needs of life. If you have that with a child or a person, that is their primary need for survival. And then you can build up on that. Well, the brain has that too, that certain function in the bottom of the brain, as long as they are met, we can move on and move on to the very end part. So when we talk about the hierarchical model of the brain functioning, is to tell you that higher cognitive abilities depend on the lower ones to be met first before we can move on. Otherwise, you may see that the child may be stuck. All right, let me pause a little bit and see if I have a question there, and then I will move on. Do we have any question?
Now, Tosin, going back to that previous slide.
Okay, let me go back.
So what I'm seeing here is that something like sleep is, if it's not there, you're not going to be able to have that concrete thoughts or abstract thoughts. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, and I'm going to get to that conversation when we get to the stressors. So when a child is having trouble sleeping through the night, fragmented sleep, or waking up tired. So, you ask the parent, oh, so how is Joey sleeping? And they're like, good. I say, don't stop there as a therapist or a caregiver. Say, when you say good, what do you mean? When does it go down? When does it wake up? Oh, the parent tells you something like, 10 p.m., I don't know. And they say, well, and then they stay up sleeping till like they wake up around 5. But there are times that she wakes up, or he wakes up like around 3 or 2. Well, that's not a good sleep, right? That's not, because the kid is having disrupted sleep. So to speak to what you said, yes, if a child is struggling with sleep, we're going to see, you may not, initially, the kid may be functioning, but over time, and that's why we talk about the chronic stress, which you're coming to, you're going to see that the kid may struggle with just brain fog. It's like, I'm not getting what you're saying. That's kids that are verbal. But kids that are not verbal, they don't know how to express those things. They just frustrated with their selves. For example, like kids that see in therapy, they come in just really disorganized. That's the way we, like as a therapist, when you see a child that is not at rest, we describe them as being disorganized, and they want something, but they're tantruming. So someone like myself, I would probably say something like, I want someone to give the kid a language so that it can fill in the gap, instead of the kid trying to come up with the full sentences, because we know that that's a bigger task, to articulate a full sentence for a desired object. So yes, sleep disruption, anything that gets in the way of sleep, has a potential to get into higher level of complex tasks. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, good. So now the brain is greedy. I'm sure some of you have heard that. The brain wants glucose. Yes, it's all it wants. That's how it functions. And so what happens with the brain is, when it takes the glucose and it doesn't have enough for higher level function, remember that lower level functioning, they don't need much in order to carry on their stuff. However, you need to make it to critical thinking, which is where problem solving takes place, which coming into midline and attending to a task, and engaging in multi-level instructions takes place when the brain has taken most of the glucose, whether due to poor diet, or maybe the person didn't sleep well the night before, such that is blood sugar dysregulation, meaning that, we see I have situations whereby, I would often ask this question. I say to the family, does the kid snack a little bit before bedtime? So let's say a parent says to me, oh, Tosin, he wakes up through the night. I may ask a question and say, does it snack a little bit before going to bed? Because sometimes when you snack before bedtime, it may increase your glucose level and wake you up, right? I may also ask the parents something like, did you notice maybe when Joey eats steak or beef or something that has a lot of protein, heavy protein, do they struggle to go down at bedtime, sorry? But the reason for that is to see if food consumed is affecting sleep routine. And so when I say the brain loves glucose, if the brain needs a certain amount of glucose and the body doesn't have enough to give, so if the child comes into therapy and they need to get something done, they would only stay in the lower brain stem, or remember I told you there's 3 parts of the brain. They would only stay in the lower brain stem, which is flight or fright, dysregulated. They're not going to have what it takes to be able to calm down their emotion, come to the table, and give me the attention needed to complete either a preferred task or even a task that I actually suggested to them. So that is, I think with this particular conversation, it's nutrition matters, because your brain needs glucose to do work. And if it's can't get enough. It's going to steal it, right? It's going to steal the glucose, don't have enough to do work, because as human beings, our cells need energy. Energy comes from food, right? So that brings us to the conversation about what kind of food gives you energy, right? So we're going to get to that. I don't want to take us off the topic we're talking about, but when it comes to the brain, it's greedy in its glucose. When it takes what it needs and there's nothing left to get your work done, meaning for your child to attend in school or get through therapy, whatever the demands are, even in-house demands, then your child is literally at a deficit of the needed amount of glucose to move on to higher cognitive demands. That's what that is. I'm just going to, do we have any question here? Because I know that's kind of like a big thing. No? All right, looks like we're good. All right, still talking about the brain. The brain.
Auntie Runke might have a question.
Sure, okay.
All right, thank you. So I just want to be clear. So you mean that a body, like a child's body, needs some amount of glucose, and if they do not get it, that is when you have the destruction? Is that
So the brain needs certain amount of glucose to function. That is its food. It's actually glucose and oxygen, just that you know. But you know, just to keep it simple, we say glucose. And so when the child, and you know, in some cases we have kids that have sugar dysregulation for whatever reason. But for the average kids that we see that they do not have diabetes, they just regular kids, but just very nutritionally deprived and very picky eaters. And just to clarify this, I think this is going to be very important. When we say glucose, we're not talking about the fortified sugar. We're not talking about, you know, like the sugars, the processed sugar. No, we're not talking about that. So, because that's why we say be careful, because especially with children and attention, we talk about the family to kind of hold back on the bad sugars, the processed sugar, because the brain really doesn't know what to do with it. It's useless to the brain. We're talking about real, you know, sugar, carbohydrates that come from, you know, either veggies or just regular carbs, that the brain needs it to do work. And so let's say there's, I don't know, I'm just going to put it out there. Let's say the brain needs 100 and the body only has 120. So now, in order for your child, let's say the child has to do a handwriting task, and they need more than 20 in order to stay and attend. We're talking about energy now on a cellular level. And the brain has taken 100. Now the child is level 20, but then you need 40 to get work done. So the kid is only going to stay in the primitive stage. Is going to stay in the lower brain stem where they're only raveling to attend. They're just trying to manage their emotion as opposed to having a stable emotion and be ready to learn. So you may see a kid who is fixated and caught up in a tantrum, or just, best ways, you know, to talk about, put it this way, the child will be in a stage of a sympathetic phase, which is where the body is not at rest. So in a sympathetic phase, one of the things we know is that there's increase in heart rate. We know that in a sympathetic phase, the child would struggle with being able to attend to a given task. So that's what I meant when I said the brain is greedy. If it needs a certain amount of glucose to function and get its work done, if it doesn't have it, it's going to take what it has and leave the body with whatever is left. And what's left may not be good enough for the child to move from the lower brain stem to the mid, and eventually the frontal cortex, where we know learning takes place. Does that help a little bit? Okay.
Yes, thank you. Yes, sorry.
So I think as a parent, what you should be looking for is, you know, my child is, you know, when your child is throwing a tantrum, see maybe, you know, their nutrition is regulated. And we're going to get to that because that's a huge topic on its own. We're going to get to that. Yeah. So this part is interesting because I think this is where a big part of therapy takes place. It talks about what fires together, wires together. So I'm going to just give a good example of what you should be looking at with this. So for example, okay, let me give an analogy of this, and I hope I'm not jumping ahead of a slide I have further down. So the brain, think about when you need your child to, think of any activity you need a child to do. So as a therapist, Matthew comes into OT, he has this goal to write a line down, which is like the foundational skills, right? And I put the paper in front of him, and I put the mark in front of him, or pencil. Maybe I already put a highlighter and I want him to trace top to down. Matthew doesn't look at the paper, doesn't even appears to care that the paper exists. All right, so he's not giving me his vision is that sense, right, that he needs. And of course, he needs his hand to coordinate with his eyes. Well, when I see that as a therapist, I know that, okay, the eyes and the hands are not working together. Hence, the child did not draw the straight line. I want you to picture Matthew has a light bulb, right? Just picture him as a light bulb that I'm trying to light up. So I tried the vision and I tried the hand coordination by I put a demand to trace, but I'm calling on two systems to do the work, but he didn't. He didn't look at the paper, he gave it no attention. Well, what fires together and wires together, that concept beckons on me as a therapist to say, what can I do different besides going in there and cueing his head in with a sense of touch? Because that's another one, right? I am pulling on touch to pull him in. But because I'm an experienced therapist, not a parent who really doesn't know much about therapy, the fact that Matthew didn't turn his head, I understand that the brain is big on rotation, right? Rotation is a complex. In order for you to move to higher level function, you need rotation. You need to turn, either turn your eyes, turn your head. You got to do that. He didn't do that for me. So that caused me to think of, what can I do to facilitate rotation in Matthew? Someone like me, just based on experience, probably put Matthew. If I have a swing, right? A lot of schools don't have swing, just that you know. If I have a swing, of course, maybe I will put in one of those swings that will cause him to do one of those things. But in the absence of a swing, I will put him on a mat. I'll have Matthew roll from one end of the mat to another end of the mat, because in the process of rolling, there is head displacement. The highs, we're gonna do a little test right now. As you're looking at me, keep your head straight and try to move your eyes, left to right. Don't move your head, just keep your eyes straight and move your eyes. Okay, move it up and down, up and down. All right, I perceive that was not easy. You not moving your head and trying to move your eyes is difficult. In fact,
I was struggling more than I would like to admit.
So that tells you the visual system and the rotational movement, which is vestibular, they're connected. They are. So trying to get a full gist of a room, but not moving the head. In fact, I'm sure you've probably seen people like this, that somebody talking to you and their head don't move. You're going to say, is everything okay? And we know that as people go through stress, whatever the stress, mind you, the brain doesn't know the difference between emotional stress, physical stress, or other kinds of stress, biochemicals. They don't. The brain just knows that it's a stress and it just responds. So stress is stress, but stress is different in everybody. So we know that. So for me as a therapist, the first thing that'll come to mind, or one of the two things I will use in my box of therapy is, let me get him on the mat. As long as he's rolling, to roll, his eyes has to follow. It's a whole body rotation. He rolls from one end of the room. I might say just roll 5 times. And then bring him back to the table. Of course, so I have included another sense, the sense of movement, right? But then I can also bring my finger to cue him in. So I am using vestibular. I'm sure you're not new to that word, but if you are, it just means the sense of movement. It lies in the ears. It's right there. So I'm using movement sense. I'm using tactile, my finger, and then I'm giving a verbal command on the visual field and of course, coordination, right? So I am using multi-system to elicit an action. That is what this is. Over time, if I keep doing that, and I actually have a student that actually, whatever I just showed you, that's the kind of, it was a kid for 2 years. They had to go for him to write a line down, make a circle, and make a cross. 2 years never attained the goal. So eventually when I took this kid, I'm like, why are we still keeping this goal? And I worked with him for 6 months, and I'm like, something is wrong. The kid's eyes does not connect. There's a dissociation in eye movement, head movement. I actually thought that he had a visual problem. So I told the parent, I made a recommendation for them to go see a eye specialist. That's a special, they're called neurodevelopmental ophthalmologist, that they should just get a good view, because those people look at the visual processing, not just 20/20 vision. And the doctor said, it's fine. I was sad because I was like, no, I don't think so. But then when I got, that's what the parents told me, by the way. When I got the report from the doctor, I saw in that report that he has something called nystagmus. His eyes oscillate. That is a function of the brain when there's a low tone. When there's a low muscle tone, tone is in the brain, by the way, not in the muscle. So there's muscle strength and there is tone. So the doctor said the eyes oscillate more than it should, but he doesn't really think it's a big deal. Well, it is a big deal because Matthew has not been riding for 2 years. So we were able to put the kid on the floor to do rotational movement, causing the eyes to follow the neck movement, bring the kid back to the table. Well, the kid now attends, he writes not so well, but there was no reason to keep him on a writing goal. We kept him on a typing goal, because his eyes is working too hard to trace. But now he's focusing and attending, because now his vision is moving with his rotational movement, meaning the sense of movement, vestibular. So we're able to tie that together because one sense was not working. And so what I wanted to bring up with this particular slide is, think of the child you're working with as a light bulb. Your role, you want the light bulb to come on. You want the child to execute a function. If a sense is not working, it's like an outlet in your house. You put the plug in, it doesn't work. What are you going to do? You're going to move to another outlet and see maybe it's firing. So with the brain, that's really what it is, to kind of find a neighboring outlet that you can pair up. And one thing to remember about this whole methodology is that you need 2 senses, 2 or more senses, to pair up with a sense that's not working. When you pair up 2 or 3 sensation with a sensation that's not working, that's firing it together. When you do it over a period of time, something is about to start kicking in. That is what they call neural pathways. They're making a new pathway for the child to move along. So that's what this is. Any question? I think we're good on that, right? All right, good. Okay. All right, so instead of me having this in little slides, I thought it was just going to slow us down. So I said, just put it all in one slide. So sensation is the language of the brain. I just explained that to you. In order to create a new mapway, a new neural pathway, we need to make some synapses. And so you don't have to be super knowledgeable about the brain. You just have to have an analytical mindset, a mind that tries to break things down. I know dads have it too, but I think moms have it better. That's just me personally. I think women tend to do that better than men. Don't take it personally if you're a man and you're on this platform. So sensation is the language of the brain. So we want to use 2 or 3 senses to wake up a sense that's not working. And if it doesn't work, let's move to the next one, but always try to find 2 or 3 sensation. It could be sound, it could be sight, or it could be smell. Just think outside of the box. That's what therapy should look like. Okay, rotational movement patterns are needed for higher level function. I told you that. If a kid is not rolling to sit, and it's going to be difficult to walk. We know that. But you've seen a few parents that say, oh, my child just got up and walked. Well, not that it's not possible, but they are bypassing a neural pathway, and the challenges may be down the line. So, but let me just give you a good example. In vision, you gotta be able to turn your head left, right, in all direction in order to kind of like be safe. In movement, when it comes to walking, the kid goes on, the kid are able to roll from their back to the side, right? When the kid is not rolling, the parent is concerned. That is because that is how the brain builds up. It builds up the rotational pattern and then moves on to complex tasks. All right, we're rolling to sit, right? We're rolling to face down, we're rolling to on our back. Once we're sitting, then we use more rotational pattern to crawl, and then we use it to pull to sit. So you want to look at your child that is your child, or the child that is under your care as a therapist or whoever is listening. Do they have rotational movement pattern? How do I know that? Get a toy or even a favorite snack, and you can put it in midline for the child to reach and eventually just move it over. See if the kid, and I'm sure you're going to find kids that they try to reach, but they're not looking at you. You're like, oh, look at me. And the kid's eye is this way and trying to reach. You can use another sense to cue the kid in, but you got to do better than touch, right? Because we know the visual system, and that's the next, the visual system and the vestibular system, they're connected, brothers and sisters, they go together. So you want, if you're seeing that a child is not visually attending, you want to knock on vestibular, the movement. You want to pair it up to make that system, the visual system, wake up. It's not unusual that we see kids with autism. The other reasons, by the way, this is not the only reason that their vision is somewhere else. There are other theories that explains that. But the one we can work with right now, right? We know other things, but the one we can work with right now is trying to pull the kids' vision into movement. When they're looking, let the eyes follow. Don't let the eyes stay there. If it's not, get the touch in, get a shaker, get one of those flashlights that has a clicking sound. You can do that. You can click, see if the hearing system is awake enough to pick that up. 80% of the brain, as it's the cortex itself, the brain cortex itself, the surface of the brain cortex, 50% of it is vision based. This information which I got from a lady, Karen Pryor. If you want to write that down, that's fine. She's got some she's a physical therapist, just that you know. Karen Pryor, phenomenal work in the area of neuroplasticity. She does mention that 80% of the vision is attached to the brain itself. So that's power right there. Other literatures that I look at say more than 50%. What is 50? What is 80? Who cares? That's a big percentage. So why not tap into that? All right, I did put this one called the corpus callosum. It is a part of the brain that helps the transmission of left side information moving from the right, the left hemisphere, the right, it makes them cross over. And there are kids that are born without that, the corpus callosum. Like if they do an MRI, they'll probably be able to tell you, but that's not what we're talking about today. It's just for you to know that when a child doesn't have a corpus callosum or it's not functioning well, you're going to see a kid that you have to constantly cue into using both sides of their body. Functions that require the use of both hands is going to be difficult for them. And the question now remains, how many activities do we have to do? Not babies now. Well, babies, they have to hold their bottle, but maybe they can hold it in one hand. How many activities as an adult or a growing child do they have to do with two hands? And so if this part of their brain is already limited, we have a kid that's going to struggle. Well, the good news to that is that the frontal lobe does not need the permission of the corpus callosum to get its work done, which is where the higher function. So frontal lobe, that's where higher level functioning is. So when you pair up an activity, let's come up with an activity. So maybe you want a child to color. I'm using a lot of tabletop activity, but I'm sure you can use self-care too. And you need the kid, let's use shoelace, putting on your socks. Let's put it that way, because then you have to use both hands. And the kid will not bring their hand to pick up the socks. Well, you could put in music because music has a pathway into the frontal lobe. So we're trying to get a child to put their socks on, put their jacket on, they need both hands. We know they have difficulty with the corpus callosum because we see that two-handed tasks it's difficult. That's how we make our conclusion. Not that because we know the brain so well. We know that when it comes to washing hands, you have to cue them in. That's already the things we can observe. So we can use music to facilitate that. We can use shakers to facilitate that because this part of the brain does not need the corpus callosum. We can bypass it. So that's how we can do that. The brain 6 pattern. I'm sure some of you have heard about sensory diet, right? The sensory diet works by us identifying. We identify what's working. What part of the child's senses are working? Well, the eyes don't do a great job because they're not moving with the neck. Well, we're working on that. But while we're working on that, let's put together routine exercises, predictable routine exercise, right? We're going to do it at this time of the day so that the child expects it. One thing you need to know about children and even adults, but more so with children, routine is key to everything. It's actually their comforter. You put a child on a routine, it's one level of stress you've just removed. You've just removed one level of stress. When the child knows, I wake up, I do this, I do that. When they wake up and they don't follow that routine, it tells you as the adult that what changed? You got to dig and find out why the kid is resistant towards that routine. And you might find out that, oh, maybe they didn't sleep well, or maybe they had a desired need that wasn't met. And now they are tantruming because they're trying to tell you, I need my stuff, or else I'm not agreeing to your plan. So they're able to send us a message through behaviors. But what you need to know is that the brain 6 pattern, we need to put the brain on a routine when we're trying to make neural connections, or we're trying to drive a skill through. Last one, and then I'm going to ask for questions. Calming the brain stem cell requires, very tied to the one I just, rhythm, predictability, and small choices. Oh yeah, we want the child to write. Well, we want to break it down. The child even holding a pen or holding a pencil. You want the child to, I don't know, wake up in the morning and brush their teeth. Well, let's break it down to even finding the toothbrush. And rhythm, like I said, I do this a lot, especially with the wealth of information that I know. I kind of think through my demands on the kid. So if I verbally instruct a kid to, color that, color, I don't know, I say, Emily, color. And Emily's not listening to me because Emily is where Emily is. I will probably just use a shaker or sing and say, Emily, color, 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 color. Emily likes to color. I am calling on a different sense, the sense of sound, to see if, and then not just sound, but when I sing, I may be appealing to the limbic system, which is in the midbrain. That's what you got to know. I may be knocking on the midbrain to help me with my low brain. Maybe the kid is tantruming there, so I'm calling on the midbrain because I know if I can get to the child on a midbrain and a low brain, I can move them onto frontal functioning ability. Okay, any question? That was a lot of talking for me. Any question?
That was great. Yeah, just because I know time is going to be catching up with us very soon.
Yeah. This is what I do.
Yeah,
Dr.
that's
G,
right.
it's 3:49.
I know. So what I wanted to say is this is very, very, very educative. Even Ronke is saying that here too. Do our occupational and teachers work together to identify how they can best educate? Because you guys pull the individual out of the classroom to go do it one-on-one.
Yes.
Are there opportunities to include some of these strategies within the context of the classroom instruction?
Yes. Good question. Depend on the kid's mandate. I'm talking about the Western world now, right? The mandate might say a pull-out session or a push-in session. I will give you a good example of a kid that I have and still have had and still continue to have. What I did was I recorded. So I put together, because I've been working with this kid for 2 years and progress has been super slow. And then I wanted to pull in the concept of making those synapses so we can rewire the brain. What I did was I spoke to the teacher to find out if they have a release to record the child, and she she has it. So I recorded the child on the routine exercise that I did that incorporated the wiring of the brain, kept it very simple, and shared it with the rest of the team that supports the child. Let me quickly say this. I use this analogy a lot in a lot of settings. Think of your child's support team as a soccer team. Just think of it as that way. You guys are playing a game, right? Of course, the child, we are here to support the child and help them achieve their maximum potential. We're not here to cure kids, we know that. We want them to be able to maximize their innate ability. It's in there, we want to support them. Every member of the soccer team they have a role. We have the goalie, and then we have the quarterback, and we have the players. Every member doing their share, and of course, communicating it, is what we need to get to our desired outcome. Well, the desired outcome may become that you win the match, great. But if you don't, at the end of the day, each member of that soccer team showed up to do their job. And that's what it is with classroom, teacher, OT, PT, that we communicate what we're doing to maximize the child's ability. And so to answer your question, for me, I did the video OT, recorded the session, shared with the team, and said, look, I see this kid 3 times. I'm going to be doing this routine exercise. There's remaining 4 days. Any member of this team, please pick up a day. Family will do Saturday and Sunday, but the remaining, any member of the team picked up the 2 other days that I'm not seeing the kid. So now the kid is getting this sensory diet 7 days a week so that we can begin to rewire the brain. So that's how we do it.
Thank you, that's excellent.
All right, so there's a lot of things I already covered, so I don't have to waste time. This I covered already, so moving on, talking about the different parts and how we can move to the next. The light bulb analogy. Yes, if you want the light bulb to go on, keep trying different outlets. I thought it was very exciting. You can keep it and look at it at your own time, but it's just to show what the different parts of the brain does, so that it's not like putting gibberish there. So it's not really relevant for this conversation, but thought it was cute and I just wanted to include in the slide. Okay, now let's talk about stress quickly. I think we should be able to breeze through this quick. So stress is any, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, external, or internal, that leads to malfunction, meaning that there's a way you expect it to function, and now there's a tip. The child is not functioning at the optimal. Parents may come up with, I don't see him talking as much, or I see him losing focus, whatever the complaint is in, that parents see, they see something and then they have a concern. Well, when that stress lingers over time, and I'm going to talk about the ones I think we should all pay attention to, because it's not the ones we really pay attention to. We're just paying attention to the symptoms and not looking at what's causing those symptoms. So when those stressors sit around for a long time, what happens is they become chronic. They're long-standing. They've been there for such a long time. They will cause a weakened state of health. Well, that weakened state of health is what you see as symptoms, right? Aggressive behavior, difficulty focusing, lack of sleep, poor appetite, poor skin integrity, under-responsiveness, that is what parents see, and they come to practitioners and say, hey, I'm concerned. My child is not learning. They can't focus. They're too aggressive. They can't stay on task. So symptoms are a signal that the body is in trouble and is trying to get back to normal. Like I said, it could be mental, emotional, spiritual. I'm not going to talk about that here, but toxins. All right, this way I'm going to recap everything. So Tosin, how should I know my kid has stressors or it's chronic? Well, you will know it's chronic because it's long-standing. But what kind of stressors should we even bother ourselves with? Hormones. All right. A quick way to explain that to people that are listening is, as human beings, we are programmed to go at a certain speed. Just picture yourself, you're a BMW, you're supposed to be cruising at 50 miles per hour. That's the way you should think of hormones. Well, some days you go 70, some days you go 40. If you keep going 70 for a very long time, the machine or your car will begin to say, I need a little break. And if you keep cruising low, it may take longer to get to where you want to go. You may not even get there. I mean, given the time frame. That is the way you should think of your hormones. And there's a lot that is packed into this, but what do you need to know? When you're seeing sleep dysregulation, when you're seeing difficulty attending, when you're seeing aggressive behavior, you may need to suspect that something may be wrong in this area of hormones. For people that don't have a lot of resources, I guess the question, Tosin, what do we do about it? Well, you can take a record of how your child is sleeping. Just box it out. Monday through Friday, Monday through Sunday. I'm going to write down when my kid goes to bed and wakes up to kind of see if there's a pattern there. Well, the other thing I want to challenge you to do alongside with that is try to include what the child hits when they go to during those periods. So the time you're monitoring their sleep routine, also monitor what they're eating. Because some kids don't do well on carbs, right? You keep them carbs, you're off the wall, their body doesn't get it. Some kids don't do well on heavy protein diet. It's a conversation for another day. If you give them like steak at bedtime, they will turn and tough. Maybe you are that kind of person as an adult. If you eat beans at bedtime, maybe you're going to be waking up several times through the night. Our kids are no different. We want to figure out if they're experiencing sleep dysregulation, difficulty attending, aggressive behavior, or they're waking up tired. That's a stressor right there. And it may be pointing to their hormones. They are going at a higher, lower speed, not the speed they were genetically programmed to go in. And so on a cheaper level, that's how you can kind of try to nip that and say, maybe if I just move the food around, maybe if I just start working on the sleep, you may not be able to have your child sleep through Monday through Friday on time. I get it. But we can make like, okay, you're going to go to bed twice a week on time. And we're going to set the stage. There's a way you can set the stage for sleep. It's not going to be easy. We're going to dim the lights. We're going to take out the TV. We're going to do things that make the body kind of go down. We're going to address the meals to see maybe when the child eats, I don't know, fufu, I'm just throwing that out. That's when they are overly dysregulated. We're going to take that out or reduce the quantity. So I challenge you to keep your eyes open for sleep dysregulation, aggressive behaviors. It might be the hormones. The kid may be going on a speed that they're not genetically programmed to do. As people that have more resources, there's a way to check the values on this. We can check your cortisol. This is not OT, by the way. I'm just, as an OT, this is what I'll be looking for when the parent says, this is what's happening. My light bulb is going on. Yeah, maybe it's the cortisol that is out of whack. We can check that. We can check that as a functional practitioner in nutrition. We can check the cortisol level. We can check to see we are born to sleep through the night and wake up during the day. We can check to see if somebody has turned over the circadian rhythm. That's a thing. But again, not everybody has all that money to throw out, so we don't need to do that. Immune system, are the kids prone to allergies? Do they have intolerances? Meaning that when they eat a certain kind of food too much, meaning they have a pizza and then they have an ice cream. We have a kid who's going to be going to the bathroom quite often or have like a little head cold. That's food intolerance. Or you're like, oh, kid have 5 different allergies. Well, that's pointing to your immune system is out of whack, pretty much. Or you're easily startled. You go, the kid like, come on, you should have integrated that a long time ago. Oh, that also points to immune dysregulation. Or hypervigilant, constantly worried. Or, like this could be applicable to like typical kids too. But that your sensors should start going off as a parent and as a caregiver. And I wonder if the immune system of this child is doing so well. There are high-end ways to address this. Well, let me speak to that a little bit. If you don't have a lot of money with the allergies and intolerances, what you can do, and if you want to write this down, it's okay. There is something called the pulse, the PULS, pulse test. You will take the pulse of your child right there. You can check out to take a pulse if you don't know. Check their pulse within a minute, write it down. If there's a food you're suspecting, you're like, every time this kid eats, I don't know, oatmeal, whatever, they always act too hyper or they just lose energy. It seems like they've been whacked down. Now, put that food in their mouth for 30 seconds. I know it's not easy with kids that are on the spectrum. Trust me, I see it. I'm not saying this is an easy mission. Or sneak the food into something. Just put it in their mouth for 30 seconds and then take the pause again. If the pause goes up by 6 seconds, 6 bits, sorry about that, 6 bits, that means the kid has some level of sensitivity to that food. Try to remove that food. Well, if you have money, you can just tell your doctor, I do have some concerns. Can you do a food sensitivity test on my child? They can do that. And then they can show you all the food they're sensitive to. Not allergies, by the way, because that's a whole different pathway. So that's one. Digestion, big. These are stressors, guys. And I think that if we start paying attention, it's going to really help. Digestion, what should you look out for as a parent? Belching. When your child eats, they belch, like, oh, you got that out. Well, it's great that they got it out. But do you know that it could be that they don't have normal dentition, and so the kid is not chewing properly, or they do not have a rotary movement in their mouth? The kids are chewing, you could hear them. I know adults do that here. They don't have a rotary motion in there. And we see a lot of kids that I serve that I'm like, I tell the speech therapist, kids is not rotary chewing. There is no high level rotation in the mouth. It's hard to move the body along when the kid is fixated in their mouth. So when the kid doesn't chew very well, they will belch because the food is not well broken down. And then the enzymes that is supposed to digest the food doesn't kick in, causing more problems downstream. So that is why, and then when you see these things that I put here, maybe your child is having diarrhea, constipation, a mix of it. That's something that's pointed that the kid is stressed out in that department. Detoxification, skin issues, kid doesn't sweat. Like kids, like I know this one, you just have to like pay attention to it. Don't even one season when the kid runs around or high energy activity, the kid doesn't sweat. That's to tell us that they're having a hard time. Well, the organ for that is the liver, but I'm not going to overwhelm you with that. They have eczema. I see that a lot. Once I see the kid, I said to them, I'm like, he's got eczema. They're like, yeah, but it's no big deal. I'm like, yeah, it's a big deal because eczema is pointing to some level of gut/food issues. Not that it's the only thing, but you want to treat that not topically only. You may be using topical things, but it's telling you that the organs and the systems are, to some extent, they're struggling. Energy production, kids is fatigue, has no motivation. Even the kid is on what's this hyperactivity medication to increase attention span and things like that. I have a kid like that, and I told the mom, we got to look at the diet. They got the kid on medication, but the kid still comes zero energy to give to anything, just lethargic. Can't sustain attention to anything because they don't have what it takes. Nervous system. Okay, this one, I think we're all familiar with it, but the only one I put there that you may not be familiar with is the collapse. That is more towards like trauma, where the kid literally separates themselves from a very stressful situation. But most of our kids that we see in therapy, dysregulated, just flight. But one thing I need you to know as a parent here, it's a stressor, it's coming from somewhere, but you cannot teach a child a skill when they are in flight. So the best bet is to kind of move the kid into rest and digest, which is what they call the parasympathetic phase. As an OT, if I'm going to spend the next 2-3 sessions with the kid just to get friendly with the kid, tell the kid this is a safe zone, it's a place you want to be. I do that. And as a parent, you want to do that. If you're saying this, that's a stressful stuff. And then oxidative stress. I'm just going to explain this. Put an apple out. You cut an apple, leave it open. You see how it changes color. That's the same thing with oxidative stress. When our kids are going through all this list of stressors, or some of them, what happens to the cell is it begins to lose vitality. It begins to weaken out. Well, it can even change form. That's on a cellular level, right? But what we're going to see as a parent, what we're going to see is fatigue, lack of motivation, not able to, like even when they go to the bathroom, maybe they're not pooping the right way. It's extreme diarrhea. Like we're only going to see a body that's falling apart. But I want to caution you listening in today on this conversation that this is important because when the cell fatigue, they change form, right? When they change form, then we have trouble in the body because they can't get their work done well. So I list all these 7 different stressors that if you don't pay attention to it as a parent, it's going to go to the brainstem. That's where the tie is. So remember we talked about the brain? The brain, hold on. All that information is going to go to the base of the brain. We're going to have, sorry, let me just go back here. We're going to have a kid that is stuck in midbrain and lower brainstem and cannot get to higher level functioning. That's really where we see symptoms, and the symptoms is what we keep battling. To wrap this up, all right, this is like your takeaway as a parent. Now you know that the body, you know that chronic stress, all the things I talked about, all those symptoms you're seeing in your child, you know that it's a way of the body telling you that I'm overwhelmed, I'm trying to get to balance, but it's not, and it's sending message to the brainstem. So you know that you cannot just focus on therapy, right? You have to tie back in. You have to have a conversation. You have to try those little tests that I told you. And if you have questions, please feel free to reach out. And when we let the symptoms, let us see that the brain stem or midbrain, then the forebrain is in trouble, because then the kid cannot do higher level functioning. Yes, we're putting the weighted vest and we're doing everything. We're only using one sense, one sensation to try to regulate the nervous system. So we want to use multiple. The body can bring itself to balance, at least it's optimal balance. If we pay attention to all of this stuff that I listed here, there are some self things you can do. There's some things that require money. You don't have to jump to the money part. You can just do the little ones that I shared, and you should be fine. Talk to your doctor. To look at the gut, you can just tell your doctor's, your child's doctor, well, the kid is having diarrhea and constipation. They will send you to go get the GI map so they can look at the child's gut and realize if there's any kind of imbalances going on there, and they can help move this forward. The brain can be rewired. I think that's just a message of hope, that we know that we can elicit an action using a different window. Rotational movement patterns. Look at the child. How does the eye behave with the neck? If your child is not turning their head and looking, time to begin to put some in-house activities, not even exercise, intentional activities to facilitate the neck, head, eye movement. The visual system and the vestibular system, brothers and sisters, they're tied together. And like I said, you can have a conversation with your therapist. What's working? What system is working and what's not working? Well, let's use the system that's working to enable the one that's not working. Let's pair it with 2 sensations. As a parent, get crafty. You can do that also. If something is working, keep it. There's no need to bother it. If it's not working, we need to try to find other pathways. And then those things that I shared with you the pulse test to check out if there's any kind of intolerances. If you have money, do an intolerance sensitivity test, because it's a stressor on the system. If the one thing I as a person can do for a family, and I do it a lot, if we can remove the food that is putting so much stress on the body, just that, I'm happy, because it is one layer of stress that I've removed. And then the kid can use the energy from the food to get work done, right? I think that's has been my go-to before I took this class. But now that I've taken the class and I have a certification, I really weigh on that to parents. Now let's use simple, achievable self-care changes. Check on the sleep routine. Maybe your child cannot do 5 days going to bed on time. Can we start off with 1? Yes, maybe you don't have to take away all the sugary things the child is doing, but maybe we can say weekends. Can we move it to the weekends? So can you just have one at the end of the day, not breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Because I do have kids that come to school that way. It's pretzel, M&Ms, and Doritos. Look, I'm sure, and when you listen to the parents, they'll tell you, look, the kid won't take anything, Tosin. So I hear it, but I say, what can we do? It may be little, just to keep moving these kids so that the brain can actually be able to move up to the cortex. All right. I think I want to stop here and take questions. All right.
Yeah, excellent. You know, this is up in my wheelhouse. What you just shared in the last slide has been the hallmark of my journey with the biomedical interventions. The baseline of there is something going on in the body that is manifesting itself in the brain. And unfortunately, we have it upside down. We always look at the brain stuff and not looking at what's going on in the body, or even not connecting the two. So we focus on the fact that the child, quote unquote, has language issues or has some, sensory issues, quote unquote, and isolating those things and only making that a focal point, when in actuality, it could be a hormonal imbalance that's causing all those things. And of course, if it was a neurotypical child, we will go to the base of figuring it out. Yeah. But with our kids, we think that it's normal. So I'll go backwards because I know other people have questions, but particularly with the sleep. I saw that Dr. Ranke has a question there. Sure. But I wanted to highlight what you just said about the food issue. That's my biggest concern, that I have, that parents get stuck in this medium of saying my child won't eat anything. Therefore, I will only give them the junk food because that's the only thing they will eat, not knowing that that's actually contributing to that oxidative stress you're describing here. So for the parents listening, junk food is not okay. We need to think creatively about other means. And so talk to Tosin offline, talk to nutritionists offline. I've said it here before that we need to get in proper nutrients, so that's why I've always talked about a diet and wanting to just make sure that people are getting the vegetables in, this is where you have to do your multivites, things that will get, but it is not okay to feed them with Doritos and M&Ms. And one can say, well, you don't understand. No, I do. We've been there, done that. Now Nicholas eats very healthy, but it came with at a cost, right? Very discomfort and changing. So I just wanted to just highlight, thank you for a very powerful presentation. And I'll leave you to answer the question that Durante has.
Okay, let me look in the chat now because I think I was just so caught up with my presentation. Okay. We'll take our, okay, it's okay.
Thank you so much. That's a lot of, it's been very educated, very enlightening. Thank you. So, yes, I have a question as regards sleep. And I think that is where the area where we are struggling. We've been able to get some routine going on, especially with sleep, which is sleeping alone, falling to, to sleep immediately, which is working. But the part that it's usually inconsistent is the waking up in the middle of the night. We've been trying to figure out what is, what she eats the night prior, and then keeping track on that. But I want to know that with this one, I'm trying to look at one of your slides where you said that it could be hormonal. I don't know, do I request for to check for any hormonal imbalance with Dara, or because Dara is the one with the sleep issue? So do I request for the hormonal imbalance or the food sensitivity testing, or what do you advise?
All right, so as a parent, I said before we start running to so many testing, let's do what's in our own wheelhouse. You can generate a checklist for yourself, or it can be provided to you, whereby you are looking at each meal that she's eating, breakfast, and you're looking at how she's responding. I have that checklist. It's called the DC something, but you can actually generate your own. You don't need it from a practitioner, where you're looking at, okay, when Dara eats cereal in the morning, so she has more energy. Do you see her just awake or over awake? Or does she get a little bit down whereby she's just quiet? So that's a 3 range. And does she want, that's one thing on that checklist. The other one is, Does she get hungry more when you provide her with cereal? Does she want to eat more cereal? Or when you give her just one handful of cereal, she's just good with that. So if a kid eats a particular quantity and they want more, that is telling you that they're not getting satiated, meaning they're not getting full. Or if they eat that, the next thing they want snack. That means that food is not giving her energy. And so she wants more and more in order to feel full. So that's another thing on that checklist. The other thing on the checklist is she happy? Is she sad? So we can monitor a child's or even adult response to food, looking at those 3 different areas. So you collect that data, you move on to lunch, you do the same. And over time, if you just box out 3 days of monitoring our food, you'll begin to see how our body behave relative to food. And then it's going to give you that information that, that actually does well on protein. On this, that she has cream cheese and I don't know, something, she is just easy. I mean, we see those kids in school, they're like, wow, what did you eat this morning? Kid is on point, just responding to demands. So you can do a food tracking record to see how a behavior with food is, because then you can easily say, my child, I'm going to throw a little jargon to you right there. My child is a fast oxidizer. A fast oxidizer does well on protein. They burn it off really well and quickly. The slow oxidizer needs carbs. They can't do protein. It just sits in their body like a log. So that's one information you can try to collect to see if you just begin to move food around, is it going to give our energy to do work and stay regulated? With the sleep, you might also see that, like you said, you already collected data on sleep, but it's kind of like reflect on our sleep pattern also. Oh, on this that she ate this, she slept well. On this that she ate this, she didn't sleep well. Oh, on this that we stopped mealtime at so we didn't let her take extra snack. So playing around with food with a well-collected data information will give you information is food is causing that. Well, if food is not causing, because normally, I don't want to throw jargon to you, but at night, your melatonin should go high, right? That's the hormone for sleep. It should go high so you can fall into a nice sleep. Well, that's where you're going to say, can you, tell your doctor and say, she's really still struggling with sleep. And, I've tried this, tried that. Can you just check a cortisol? It's called the stress hormone panel. Stress hormone panel with a focus on the cortisol levels and melatonin. And then the doctor can say, well, I see the melatonin is elevated and I see the cortisol. What does that mean? They tell you what that means, and then you can go from there. I'm not saying put your child on medication. We don't advocate for that, but at least it is telling you what the body is doing with what it has. So yeah, I hope that kind of helps.
Tosin, I want to add that if a question earlier about a hormonal imbalance, it doesn't hurt to ask your doctor to look at your thyroid function test. Because there's some individuals that we have found that they are hypothyroid, for example. So I think beyond just the diagnosis of the autism spectrum disorder, there should be a whole complement of testing that's done to ensure that biochemically that individual, there are no issues. I know that with our son Nicholas, we had an immune dysfunctionality in the way that his neutrophil count, which is a function of the white blood cells, was rather low. So, and then he was also a victim of eczema. So those are all the things that she was describing were all things that we saw with Nicholas. And when we took gluten out of his diet, we saw changes. So we know that there's the food sensitivity that we're describing, the sleep issues that we're describing, the GI issue that we're describing, all those things were all functional. And the eczema shows up because, yes, and Nick had an eczema because it's a detoxification blockade. Where the skin is a source of strategies for the body to get rid of toxins out of your body. So when you see things on your skin, it's telling you that there is an issue with the liver processing. Okay, so you got me excited. Let me not get over that. But
I'm excited too.
The point here is it's so crucial that we continuously, because sometimes the other thing parents also say is like, oh, right now he doesn't have any food sensitivities. But from what I'm hearing you say is that something may be fine right now, but if you see some emergence of new behaviors or issues, there might be a value in evaluating what's going on with that. So I just kind of wanted to echo that there's importance of, that. And what you're describing is not just only to the children, I think the teenagers too, because we have parents on who may be watching, those kids are in the teenage years and they're not sleeping. And I know that puberty also brings forth a whole cascade of hormonal issues. So some of those things may happen at that point. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation, to the value of what you underscore, what you've said here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Tosin?
Yeah, sorry, I have a follow-up. Sorry. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
That's okay.
So we actually started with melatonin. So when you put up that melatonin, because I know that she doesn't fall asleep easily. So that was why we started on that melatonin, but she's actually doing pretty good. But sometimes, she still wake up at night. She might go well within a week, not waking up at all. And then maybe in another 2 weeks, it just pops up. But she will fall asleep, but waking up in the middle of the night is, one of the issues.
It's okay. Should I take that, Dr. G?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, if you want to talk offline, that's fine. But from what I'm hearing you say, I mean, look, Dr. G is the pharmacist, and not me. What I'm hearing you say, it makes me want to ask like follow-up questions, like what is our bowel movement like? Is she regular? Does she have diarrhea and constipation? Like those kind of things. I would have to ask those follow-up questions, and because melatonin is good, it's just over time, Dr. G. I think you might have more information. If you start melatonin over time, how does the body manage that particular?
It's a natural hormone. So if she's deficient in it, it's not an issue. It's more of the greater concern is what's causing.
What's causing it?
What is causing the issue? So when she's describing, and I had the same thought. Is that okay? She's sleeping, but what did you do differently that caused her not to sleep anymore? So we look at the food. So the food diary is going to be the food and stool diary. Those are the two things that one must do. And remember, one of the precursors for melatonin is serotonin, which is another hormone. So there's a whole host of issues that may be going on that you don't know about that we might need to evaluate even further. The melatonin is just an antidote to an underlying issue. So that one needs to look at that. Hopefully that answers your question. It probably raises more questions for you at the Rankins. I think you're right.
I will go check her GI. I'll ask my doctor for a GI map. That's what I will do to kind of see what dingy things are hiding there. Because what happens is, I don't know if I have that much time, but over time, right, inside the gut. We'll
bring you back with part 2.
Okay, so I'll just leave it there. I would want to look at the GI map and see what those organisms are that are housing themselves in there, causing more dysbiosis.
Yeah, but by the way, not all GI doctors will agree with doing a GI map. So you might have specific type of GI doctors that will be more open-minded, because not all of them do. I just want to throw that out there.
If she told the doctor that the kid is having diarrhea and constipation, they won't do it?
I think we still need to make sure we have a doctor that's understanding, that's more open, because sometimes they're just very narrow in their view. Some haven't even understood that the functionality of the importance of dietary changes. So it will be just purist. So, I think mainstream medicine is slowly embracing the fact that these individuals are complex and we need to be open. And then look at the immune GI complex, right? Because there's always a correlation. By the time an individual is having GI issues, they also have immune system issues. Yes. So you need it as a whole holistic component. So, but I agree with you. That's where we start. It's all in the gut. So, Ronka, this opens more doors for you. And I think for anybody else listening, Tosin raised there's a lot of information, and I'm going to invite families. This is on our YouTube. Go watch it. again and again and again, because she brought it up at a very level that I'm like, wow, this is awesome, especially when you start to integrate the brain component to it. So I think that's really, really good. But yes, you'll be coming back because you have a lot to share. And thank you so much for all the work and your continued growth in this area. It's really exciting to see you adding this additional part. Now you see my obsession about dietary intervention. But I think for us as clinicians or practitioners who have been in mainstream education, a lot of this area is so untapped and a lot of our colleagues don't know about it. And so, we definitely, once we start to, our eyes are open, so we know that we can do more to help families. So we want to just say thank you, everyone. Send any notices you want to give people before we close out?
Oh, for upcoming events?
Yes.
Yes. So for anyone who is living in Central New Jersey, we're going to be having our social hour live in Lawrenceville. So definitely keep a lookout for the flyer. It'll be at from 9:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. So we're really excited about that. Of course, our empowerment moment with Dr. G on a monthly basis. So definitely tune in for that. And of course, our gala is quickly approaching. So if you haven't already bought your tickets or donated, please do so. We're only 4 weeks away, which seems crazy. I feel like we just started planning, but the gala is quickly approaching. So definitely encourage everyone to get your tickets, and definitely not an event you want to miss. We're going to have amazing speakers. Dr. Temple Grandin will be playing a video from her, and then also Akil Ladd, and a ton of other really great things that we'll have going on. So we'll hopefully be looking forward to seeing you at our future events.
Great. Thank you so much. Once again, Tosin, we want to say, great job. It's more than great job, excellent job in doing this presentation. This really was something that is well needed. And I know that there are going to be families that will listen, and it could be overwhelming, but I think it was really well translated across. So we want to say thank you. So once again, thank you everyone for tuning in to the Ask the Expert, where we're talking about the role of sensory processing and then also the chronic stressors and how we manage it and mitigate it. So we're grateful for everyone joining, and have a great evening, everyone. Bye. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.